So, hi again. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm connecting today with Federica from London to talk about cultural intelligence, and we're going to be contextualizing this into the retail world and the retail environment. We're going to be connecting in a moment to kick off with this conversation. So, third times are the best times.
Yes.
Frederica, thank you so much for joining me today. This is one of the editions that I do that concentrate more on the world of retail and sometimes do a link with luxury aspects. And we're going to take the time to go through your journey and how you have become what you are today. What were your major inspirations? And we're going to then continue talking about the importance of what you do and how it relates to the retail world. So you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Ghalia, and thank you for having me here and for inviting you to your channel. And, good morning from London to everybody who is connecting now. So I'm a social anthropologist. This is how I define myself. And I specialize in the analysis of consumption in luxury and fashion. And talking about my career path, I have to say it has been a little bit unconventional in a sense, because I started actually specializing in Japanese language and culture. I did my BA and MA in Italy. And then I moved to Milan, where I started working in the fashion field. I was working in a showroom as a B2B. I was a sales in a B2B, which means that you deal with buyers, you deal with owners of boutiques, and I was in charge of the international clients. And what I noticed is that in the way they were choosing, maybe the colors, maybe the styles, they were having some differences between each other, and so I got curious about that. I got curious about how culture can actually influence the way we pick up a collection for the store, and we are successful in the retail environment in Russia rather than Japan, rather than US. And so I decided to delve deeper in that. And so I was lucky enough to receive a scholarship from the Japanese Ministry of Education to move to Japan and to do another MA and then a PhD in fashion sociology. And so I focused on Japanese culture, but then I kept that interest towards the cultural differences. And so I analyzed, for instance, how Japanese consumers perceive made in Italy fashion. And then later on in my PhD, I delved deeper, literally, in culture. And so I went to consider the Japanese adoption of Western clothing in the 19th century, which actually meant for me to really, go deeper into the cultural colonialism, really. That was the time, right? And then the construction of social identity, modernization, all seen through the lens of clothing. And this kind of lens really stuck with me in a way, because even later on, when I started teaching, but then I took a sabbatical to attend an MBA here in London. And even in that environment, we're talking about management and luxury brand management specifically, I always try to apply the anthropology to understand consumers. And so I did a project on how online users perceive the country of origin of luxury goods. So since then, I've been combining really social anthropology and business in a way.
And Federica, when you talk about anthropology, it might be like a large term that most of us don't understand. How can we demystify that term and explain it in a few words? What does this job or the eyes of an anthropologist, what do they see, or how are they trained to see things?
Yes, I'm not sure it will be with a few words. I will try. So, it is basically, you're right, it's about eyes, it's about seeing. And what an anthropologist sees is culture, is the way we live our lives. It's about unpacking the set of values that we have, the habits that we have, the rituals that we have. And, you know, this way of living allows us to be together with others. You know, we can think about tribes, we can think about, you know, our group of friends, we can think about the family, we can think about our fellow, you know, nationals. And so it is about the idea of seeing how this way of life creates a sense of belonging to a group, as well as a sense of difference. So, you know, in our reality, we usually tend to see culture as something related to our national culture. This is just one sphere. But then, you know, in our life, we grew up in a family. And so we grew up in a group with a specific habits, specific values. Then maybe now we are working in institutions, in corporation, they have a culture as well. They have their habits, they have their values, they were their, you know, even probably, you know, we have a sort of lingo, you know, when you're speaking with colleagues. Then let's say in our private life, if you're supporting a football team, I don't know, and you go to the stadium to support them, then you will probably be more familiar and already acquainted with our fans over there.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're a sneakerhead, right? And so you participate in forum groups, and there is a lingo as well. There are rituals as well. And so, you know, anthropology is delving deeper and unpack all of that.
Yeah.
And if we go to consider fashion, because we talk about fashion, we talk about luxury, we have also to consider one specific aspect of culture, and that is material culture. And so it is about seeing how people use material culture to build a sense of belonging or to build a sense of separation. So I go back to the football, and maybe it's my Italian culture, but I go back to the football. And let's say you are going to support your team and you wear a jersey or you wear a scarf. You will immediately recognize who is also your fellow supporter. And maybe you will say hello, you will start talking. So immediately establish a deepest connection. And, in opposition, if you see somebody from the other team, you will just say away, you are So this is the way. Or if we go back in history, the miniskirt, that was a powerful sign or symbol for modern women, for young women to say, we want a different society, we want to be free, we want to be different from our mothers. So that was a very powerful cultural symbol in that respect.
Right. And a final question just related to that idea. An anthropologist has the ability to see things from an objective way, or does he at a certain point include his subjectivity to do the interpretation? I mean, you coming from a certain cultural background or having lived in a certain culture that had maybe infused some of the aspects into your way of or thinking and analysis, would that be delivered as well in your interpretation whenever you are studying a fact or an environment?
Yeah, I think that it's much about self-consciousness. So we need to be aware that we are individuals and we have received specific education, we have had specific experiences. So I think it's not about being objective as such. I don't believe in that really, but it's about describing what you see or making hypotheses based on your own perspective, knowing and being aware that this is your perspective. Right. And so it's never exact in that sense, it's never objective. But then I think you have to have that honesty to say, look, this is how I see it, right? And this is where I'm standing. So I think that in anthropology, you are as aware of the others that you're studying as you are of yourself.
Right.
You are the one looking, right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. Now, when we're talking about as well our environment and the importance of the material aspect, symbols, rituals, etc., the environment, the physical environment, is an important aspect or variables that we study. So location and environment are important elements that constitute the very fabric of this cultural experience or customer experience if we're talking about retail. So how do you analyze the environment and present relevant findings that retailers at a certain point could benefit from?
Well, first of all, we are talking about the physical environment, so let's
Right.
focus on that. I think that in the modern history of consumption, in the way in the way we actually consume now, location has been pivotal in the sense that, especially with fashion and luxury, consumption of fashion and luxury is never about satisfying a need. It's always about a desire. It's always about actually imagination. So you see a bag, maybe somebody's walking down the street with a bag, and you imagine yourself with that bag, and this triggers your desire.
Yeah.
So it's all about triggering people's imagination. And I think that in a way, location is perfect because especially in urban environments, you have you have cluster of stores that they create this fabric. Let's say in London we have Bond Street for luxury, but then we have also Shoreditch for the kind of indie fashion. And so you know that you will go out, you will enjoy, some time out, you will see people maybe of your crowd in terms of fashion taste. So you will get inspired, you will start seeing people, you will see fashionable people, and you will observe, and maybe you will say, yes, I want that as well. And then you have the possibility, of course, to observe, all the merchandising, all the items that are there. Of course, we also work with our mobile phones now, and so also we double check maybe on our Instagram profile, etc., etc. So this is why somehow, luxury brands are, despite being in a time of digital environment, they still invest so much in the physical retail. I'm thinking about Louis Vuitton, building in Osaka, a flagship store whose architecture is resemblant to the ancient merchants, ships. Right. Just nodding to the, let's say, merchant tradition in Osaka. Or very, very recently, Gucci with the Gaok, store in Seoul, where they collaborated with a Korean artist in a way to build, the flagship store. So this is a way for brands to connect with the environment and to be part of the physical, geographical environment.
Yeah, like a reflection of the location in which we're appearing, and this, if we're looking at this difference between today's physical and digital world, what can we say about again the importance of the physical location in terms of creating that experience? So here we are in a certain city building up a flagship store or a store that looks like the environment, right? And what should this do to the customer?
So, first of all, yeah, we have been talking about, the external experience, and the shopping experience, shouldn't be considered just when your customer enter, your doors. It starts right before. In the moment the customer enters, this is actually a completely different space. This is your brand space. We are not going to virtual reality, but is a sort of virtual reality in the sense that it doesn't exist outside. Everything is polished. Maybe you have arts all around. Maybe you have a few items displayed, but actually it's all about the brand. And so this is a completely universe, and it's a cultural universe, because if we go back to the concept of culture, it's a universe where you have certain norms, you have certain rules, it's the brand world. And this is why, there have been brands that, have been really focusing in building that universe. It's not luxury, but still very powerful. It's Nike. We can consider also another brand, which is Rafa, the cycling gear company, where they also implemented a lot the experience in terms of building clubs for cycling clubs around the world, or having events in store. So at the time, people were saying they are innovating the retail. I think it's something more. They are creating an environment that actually embraces the customer as a human being. So you're not just buying, the cycling gear. You're actually part of a community because your passion is basically cycling, right?
Right. So we're talking about these spaces creating immersive environments in which the customer can really forget the outside world and the stress of this outside world to live what he wants for a certain period of time, hopefully. And so this importance of environment, and again, we are going to talk in a few about like the degrees of environment. The range of the environment today is going from purely transactional to highly experiential. And experiences, as you might have pointed out, are not only restricted to luxury brands today. And we are going more and more into these types of blended environments that have like several functions. Can you elaborate on that idea? And later on, maybe we could also talk about these third spaces, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think if we consider the environment nowadays, I would like to use the word fuzzy. Fuzzy comes from actually mathematical science, and it refers to a situation where it's not yes or no or 0, 1, it's something in between. Yeah. And I'm sure, if we think about the customer journey nowadays, and I'm sure you, Ralia, or the audience, each one of us would describe the customer journey in a slightly different way. But I'm trying just to make an example, right? Let's say I'm still with the bag, with my handbag. I might have seen, on somebody. It might well have been a friend, or it might have been on an influencer kind of post. Then what I do, I say, okay, I want to buy it. What's happening now, right now, is actually, do I want to buy brand new? Do I want to rent it? Do I want to buy it secondhand?
Right.
And we know now that the platforms have agreements. My Theresa, I know that they are partnering with the Vestiaire Collective. So already there we have some possibilities. But then let's say I go the traditional way and I say, okay, I want to buy it firsthand. So, okay, what do I do? Do I go to e-tail platforms? Do I go to My Theresa? Do I go to Farfetch? Or do I go to the website, to the brand website store? Or do I go, physically? And then let's choose the going physically. Then I go physically, but then let's say I try the bag on, there are different colors. So maybe I can take some pictures and send it via WhatsApp to my friends, and say, what do you like? Or I could also involve the Instagram audience, right, on my social media. Yeah. So there is a disintegration, a fragmentation of that journey. But there is also an integration because you can have different combination. And so, when we talk about the retail environment, we have, the buyer, the seller, the object, but then we have the others around, the friends, the influencers, the technology. And so this creates somehow, the kind of blending of the transactional plus the experiential somehow.
Yeah. And so this means that the functions of retail that we used to have and we used to study, like in a store you should go and purchase, online you should do this. We're even in a store we're adding like different functions that allow the customer to have the liberty of either experiencing and experimenting, either making the purchase instantly or maybe delaying it and doing it elsewhere. If we open like a little parenthesis, is this like a disturbing behavior for retailers today in terms of money and transactions?
I think it's a matter of mindset, I remember, I think it was 3 years ago, I was reading, everybody was talking about the retail apocalypse, because
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
this opposition, digital is gonna steal, the customers from the, from the high street, and, it's a tragedy. Then we got to a point where you realize you needed integration. And so you start talking about the digital, you start saying, okay, how can I, in terms of operation, how can I make sure that the customer maybe buys online and return on store, or, I can kind of merge together my stock. And that was the idea. And now there is a different reality where when we talk about immersive experience, when we talk about engagement, that's a challenge for the retailer, because it's not just about, placing some art on the walls and saying this is immersive, this is, blended, whatever. It's about actually reconfiguring all the business, value chain, and also change also the role of sales associates
yeah, yeah.
necessarily. So I think that more than distracting or disrupting is actually somehow forcing retailers to rethink about their
Their
business.
their business and their functions, right? And okay, so in that also context, when we're talking about environments, we have seen also that retailers or other services are creating environments in which customers could come and spend more time and maybe become part of the daily routine of the
Mhm.
customer. Offline, I mean, before doing the live, we evoked the importance of third spaces and how they have become like transition spaces in our daily routines.
Mhm.
For coffee shops, I mean, there were lots of third spaces created, right? But how do retailers today and fashion retailers create these spaces?
Well, first of all, it's if we go back to the reason for that is that we constantly live in a third space. In the past, we would have one specific place where we would work. We would have one specific place where we would feed ourselves and sleep, and have the private sphere. We would have places of trade and commerce where we would buy things, right? And so this was the store, etc., etc. And now we are in a situation where basically we can experience, everything in one go. So I can be shopping and at the same time sending a work email, or I can check, or I can send, I don't know, the partner to the grocery store, right, for the evening. So this is our environment, and so I think that retailers in that respect needs to be aware of that. And with coffee shops, it's quite interesting, because I would say that the first sign that something was changing is when I started seeing companies establishing their cafes,
Yes,
Burberry
yes.
or because again, I think their idea was actually these people are not just entering my store. These are people who are probably going around, they are with their friends, or they need some rest. So, they were considering customers as human beings, and they
Yeah.
were considering their experience more widely. And this is
Mm.
where coffee comes. But this could be applied, for instance, with art, the creation of stores that are actually like museums, where you don't just go if you're a customer of a brand, you're just curious to enter and see the work of art.
Yeah.
Um, if you think about Jonathan Anderson opening in Paris, so probably you have visited it, um,
Not yet.
the Loewe, the Loewe store in Paris, in an interview he said, this is not a store for me, this is a place of
Beautiful.
experience.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, yeah.
And Frederica, I was curious. I mean, to if we try to visualize a little bit the extension of luxury brands into like these different types of formats, including those spaces. For example, if I really like a luxury brand, let's say Dior, if we're naming, if I cannot consume directly from the brand's product, would it be okay to enter the sphere like by going to the coffee shop and maybe consuming a cappuccino? Right? I mean, with those spaces, are luxury brands also, I don't want to use the word democratize, but allowing customers to enter their spheres, maybe on the exterior level, you know, just to take part of this community as well?
Yes, I do believe that's the game. Now, the issue for luxury is, and I think I understand your hesitation in using the term democratizing, and I agree as well. I think that some companies, some luxury brands are very good in giving access to everybody with something that is not diluting their brand, because the coffee is a little bit is like, it's like offering champagne whenever you go, you know, and buy something. It's becoming a little bit mainstream. But I'm thinking about very creative ways. I'm thinking about Hermes.
Mm.
They open, and that was not a store technically. They were doing the Carré Club. That was a nomadic kind of event where they were celebrating the Carré scarf. And so you would have a specific place where everybody could go. And, you know, you usually don't enter an Hermes store unless you're going to buy something.
Exactly.
But there, you know, people could go. There were events like, you know, even art events and performances. And that was great because then people would go there, take a picture, post it on Instagram. They felt part of the brand, they felt the sense of belonging. Another one that Hermes did and was really interesting was the Hermematic. It was
The washing.
laundrette, you know, and they were, you know, so again, they played a lot with the, you know, with the idea of the accessibility of the brand, but they presented it, I think, in a very funky way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that, you know, yes, you can, inverted commas, democratize, but you have to do it in a certain way because you're still a luxury brand.
Right, right. And we're going to attend to that idea in a few. Now with the pandemic, shared spaces and retail spaces, or everything that had to touch with the physical environment, could not operate for a few months. But along the way, the online and augmented reality or other digital applications took the relay, right? We see now more and more shops recreating their stores online. I mean, not only I could go shop by product, but I could feel myself going into the store. And this is also complicating like the layering of retail and this blending, right? Space between physical and digital. So what say you about, first of all, the pandemic and how it added on even the change of the mindset of our retailers today?
Yes, it's right. It's very complicated, and I think hybridity is the key word here. I think the pandemic reshuffled a lot our relationship with places, and with places, let's include now the digital environment and the virtual environment. So, for instance, you know, if we talk about the e-tail, there was, was a call for those who hadn't implemented a system of e-tailing. So that was merely instrumental to survive. It was a lifeline, right, for many retailers. But you're right. There were, you know, we realize that the virtual reality and the digital reality, could be used as a socializing tool. I mean, besides the social media. And so for immersive experiences, for diversifying the experiences. And so you have now, for instance, Gucci, you know, organizing events both in Florence, you know, their historical kind of city of origin, but then at the same time, they are, they are replicating the experience on Roblox, which is, you know, a gaming platform. And so it has become actually very, very, very common. So companies who are able to see and exploit the possibilities of socialization online and immersive socialization online, I think that,
Right.
they will be winners in that respect. Then we have something else that is quite curious and interesting, and that is the fact that, you know, we have been banned from traveling, and this meant that I'm sure that everybody of us paid more attention to the local dimension.
Yes, right.
And
Yes.
so, you know, because this is basically, you know, how far you could walk, or probably if you're lucky you had a bicycle, but that was it. And so I realized that, you know, some brands are actually exploiting that. And I've read of urban engineers and architects perceiving the good life as a life that is, even in terms of distance, is sustainable. It's like 15 minutes and you can go to work, you can go to, you know, to enjoy your leisure time, etc. Now, you know, some brands have been very attentive to that. So some brands have actually closed the retail stores in the city center and kind of moved towards affluent neighborhoods. I'm thinking in London, Hanya in March, you know, who opened several kind of small retail points and called them the village.
Mm.
So again, going back to that kind of local dimension. I'm thinking now about Dior with their Dior Riviera collection. They are going to target specific kind of affluent vacation holiday sites.
Yes.
I'm thinking about Louis Vuitton opening on the Lake Como within a hotel. So the hotel somehow has become the kind of touristic location, but because of the pandemic, it looks like a very enclosed, somehow, and separated, protected bubble environment.
Right.
So this is also a dimension that I think I'm quite curious to see how this will evolve.
Yes.
And then we stay with the big cities. I'm sure that when you know, the restriction of traveling will ease up, probably we will have still the kind of touristic kind of retail, where again you associate the place you're visiting with the experience of the vacation and then the shopping.
Right. Right. And which also means that mostly those new points, closer points, reflect more of temporary types of retail, right? And we saw that most of these luxury brands looked at doing, I don't know if we want to call them pop-up stores, but other types of remote stores touching like very specific people through very specific collections. And here again, if we want to draw back to our initial point starting the conversation, we see that the product and the store reflect totally like the point in which the brand is appearing, which is beautiful, right? So I don't know if we can talk a little bit also about this phenomenon, retail phenomenon relating to ephemeral or pop-up store or these temporary environments and how they are becoming part of our new retail culture.
Yes, and this reflects, if we want, our society, you know. Our society changes so fast. We are used to a sort of liquidity, you know, in our way of living.
Right.
And you know, we are somehow we have integrated fashion in our way of thinking. It's not just about changing, you know, clothes according to the season. It's actually, you know, we always crave for something new. And so this also shortens somehow the value, you know, even the economical value of things. And so this is why we have collaborations. Collaborations are mainly on-off, and they capitalize on the fact that I'm here collaborating with this other brand just for this period of time, you know, hurry up, you know, this kind of idea of be the first, hurry up.
The urgency.
Exactly. Right? And building this kind of exclusivity on time.
Yeah.
This is where I think, this is where we are as human beings nowadays in the Western world. And this is where, of course, brands see the opportunity. So to create the buzz, to create the sense of scarcity that is related to the moment. By the way, time is becoming actually a real luxury, right? So even to be able to attend a specific event where you will receive some goodie that then you can resell, you know, on the market because it's linked to that particular event. This is how you create value that is ephemeral. Is ephemeral because it's shortened in time.
Right, right. Thank you for that. And finally, if we're like joining all of these ideas, they gave you a lot of depth to study and to look at, and which helped you, I believe, confront at a certain point what you have studied into what you can add on to the professional sphere. And you've set up your own consultancy agency. Can you talk a little bit about that little project, how it's growing, and the pillars on which your, if I might use the word, way of working consists of?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that that stemmed exactly, and we go back to what I was saying before. When I started then researching and lecturing on business, I realized that yeah, you have consumption behavior, which is heavily focused on psychology. On nowadays, it's all about big data and neuroscience. And I couldn't find a place where to place myself. I almost hide the fact that I'm an anthropologist, or a social anthropologist better, but because I'm like, I don't have a space here. This is business. Yes, you can fall within marketing. Yes, you are, but it's not that. And so I felt that I needed a space for me to bring that approach to business, because I think that business more than ever need that. And this is why I founded my sort of alter ego. I'm mainly an academic, but my alter ego, and that is Soul Cultural Intelligence. And I'm working around the concept of cultural intelligence, which is basically the ability of companies to read the market and to connect the social and cultural shifts to consumers, to the audiences, to the communities. Because yes, you can use big data, you say, okay, I will hack into people's brain, but eventually we live in society. We are influenced by our external world, and businesses don't have the time, and they work on a very tight, kind of timeline.
Yeah.
And so not always do they have the time to connect and join the dots. So for instance, what's happening on the political side, and what's happening on the social side. And so what happens often is that companies react to things. Let's think about Black Lives Matter. Let's think about the Me Too movement. Let's think about sustainability. Companies are like, all of a sudden, they wake up and they're like, okay, people want something else, so let's try and catch up with the people. But you're not building a competitive advantage if you don't know what's going on. And so sometimes it means to go deeper, in the society, and to detect trends that are maybe underground, and they will become visible, later on. So the way I work is pretty much giving this kind of contextual reading and then apply to the specific case in point.
Right.
Yeah.
And why I'm laughing, because I wanted to join like the question of big data. Of course, I've had many previous sessions with people working directly with data. And we also acknowledge at all times that data is very important, but could be restrictive or limited, because you might fail to read correctly vis-a-vis your environment. So here we could say that in your line of work, you give more of a global view of the environment in which the company is, and how it could affect in a way or another decision making, and could at a certain moment, of course, couple it with data. We're not denying the fact that data might be important or is important today. However, do brands accept sometimes these insights that might be scary and general, and might not give them concrete elements to act on?
That's the tricky part, because if you want, it's an investment. Again, we need to go back to the corporate culture as it has been developing, where value is about economic value, the brand equity, how much you sell. And, I need tangible result. If it's not tangible, it's not scientific. The same idea of science, if if you don't give me numbers. But then numbers are not existing in the real world. Numbers comes actually for the people creating the numbers. And if we think about the algorithms, algorithms learn from us. If we have bias, we transfer our bias. So it all comes down to people. And so it's very, I think it's very hard for, you know, a traditional kind of management model to accept that. But what is happening, I go back to the idea of Black Lives Matter and these kind of big social issues. Now we're dealing with the very big social issue. We're dealing with diversity. We're dealing with our environment.
Yeah.
And so there is no way you can understand what's happening just with one set of data. You need something else. So it's an integration. And in that case, as a company, you need to be able to be confident, even to accept something that is not numeric, is not maybe, you know, what you want, and what you make your life simpler. Because it's not, reality is not, it's for us to understand it. It's not for us to simplify it, you know.
Right, right.
And so there are companies, I believe there are companies and entrepreneurs who understands that. And so, you know, with this kind of environments, you are able to work and you are able to kind of give your own perspective. But definitely is a path that is still open, you know, for people to walk in a way.
Right, right. But it's really, I believe that this is an essential part of data and analysis, like the qualitative type of data, which might see more value in the future as we have become, or we had been becoming very restrictive in the ways we were thinking, and we saw the limitations to that. So I hope that the future is bright for you and for your research. And apart from that, just a couple of ideas on the courses that you teach and what you focus on as well in the academic world.
Yes, thank you. I'm working at the moment at Sotheby's Institute of Art. We have been delivering a course called The Art of Luxury, and now we are ready to launch a new master. And the master is luxury business, so it will start from next January. And this master is exactly somehow a way for me to combine these two elements. There is the business side, but there is, you know, we start really from the humanistic side. We start from the concept of luxury. We understand that luxury is something that depends on the context. It depends on what people value, on what is relevant to people. And with this kind of line of thought, then we delve into the business. So my idea, maybe it's ambitious, but my idea is actually to train future managers, entrepreneurs who have this kind of anthropological lens. As you said, it's important to be open to other, of course, to other stimuli as well. But I think that this is the one that is able to combine the humanistic side with the business side.
Right. Of course, if we need to get more information about the course, would it be available on the website, or how could the interested people contact you?
Yes, so of course, you know, the course specification and description is on Sotheby's Institute of Art website. And then, of course, I'm available on LinkedIn. I have an Instagram page as well, an official one, which is AOL Fede. Yes, and this is the way you can contact me.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Federica. I think we talked about most of the things that we wanted to right before the live, and I hope that you're satisfied with the conversation. Are there any other things that we didn't cover and that you would like to highlight?
No, I think we cover pretty much quite a wide spectrum. And actually, I would like to thank you, you know, for giving me the opportunity to reflect on those aspects, and also to the people who joined us. You know, it's really, sometimes I know that we are all busy and we are all attending different kind of businesses. sometimes it's nice to kind of sit back and reflect on this topic, you know, go
Right.
deeper a little bit on the way we live and the way we consume as well.
Exactly. Like go transcending our momentary thoughts into realizing what we are and reflecting on that.
Exactly.
And as you said, like time is luxury today. I hope that we can all find the time to do this. Thank you so much, Federica, and thank you everyone for attending. I know that sometimes we have people coming in or joining a bit later. However, I will be directly sharing this episode on IGTV and later on YouTube, and we'll be relaying it on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much, Federica, and hopefully we meet soon, either in Paris or London, and talk more about this beautiful topic.
Thank you very much, Ralia. Thank you very much for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, 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 bye,
Bye.
everybody.